Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Catherine Mattice here with Civility Partners. I got my kind of exercise gear on today because I'm going to be filming a LinkedIn learning course, but I have to set up a bunch of lights and stuff today. So I'm going cash. Today I have Jeff Christian here with me, who I met, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that, at a great nonprofit called No Bully that is really focused on working with kids in schools around bullying in that area at that age. And so Jeff and I had met way back then, and Jeff's got a really cool story. He was a nurse. Now he's working on a nonprofit that's really focused on leadership and building relationships. And he's just a cool guy. So thanks, Jeff, for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. Very excited. Haven't done one of these shows before. So yeah, it's fun that it's live, and let's just figure out this thing called life.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. So first, introduce yourself by telling the audience about what you do. What does C4 Leaders do?
That's a good question. And I know we only have a short half hour, but the long and short of it is with COVID, I totally rebranded what we were doing. It's leadership development, team building, that kind of stuff that I did with on the corporate side and schools and things. But with COVID, I realized that we need something different. And we've had the good fortune of hosting 3 students through Rotary Youth Exchange. And we had the great fortune of going to visit them in Switzerland, France, and Italy a couple summers ago. And when I was on that trip, I was really taken back of how they use mealtime to celebrate each other. And that really spoke to me. And I grew up with 8 brothers and sisters, and we always had family meals together, but not in the way that they do overseas. And so when we came back, I said, you know what, I got to do something about this. And fast forward, found a father and son team out of Napa that builds an amazing pizza oven, found a Toyota delivery truck, had that chopped up and put a pizza oven on the back of this Toyota truck. And I said, you know what, I'm going to bring people together with food. And who doesn't love pizza? It's the number one favorite food in the world. And so C4 Leaders builds community through these gatherings of bringing people together just to allow them to break bread together, to come to the table, to set the table, to sit at the table and celebrate at the table. And I cannot think of a better time than now with all the craziness been going on with the pandemic than to just sit there and kind of honor each other. And so that's what we're doing. And to be honest, we're still figuring it out. It's available, but I'm not really putting it out there as much because I want everybody to feel safe. And we're getting closer to that. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on.
Okay. And how did you tell me about your journey? Because you were a nurse, and you've also, while being a nurse, you were doing other things around leadership, and I know working with schools and helping them develop leaders for their with their kids. So I want to hear your journey.
Yeah, so I think it starts obviously growing up. When you have 8 brothers and sisters all in a span of a little less than 11 years, and we were all blessed to go to private school, but we had to earn that right. So we were the janitors, the landscape crew, set up and took down bingo on Tuesday and Thursday. And I learned these values that I didn't know at the time that were going to be vital towards me as an adult and sharing them. And those are the C4 values, which are communication, chemistry, consistency, and creativity. And so all growing up, I was getting influenced by amazing parents and my brothers and sisters. And then I knew that I wanted to serve. So I had the good fortune of, I'm really tall, which you can't tell, but I'm 6'8". The weather is great. Yes, I play basketball, wear size 16 shoe, weigh 230 pounds, and married beautiful girls that I've ever seen, which doesn't make sense on this platform. But every time I'm speaking, people are kind of just looking up at me like, God, that guy is tall. But I went to University of San Francisco on a full basketball scholarship and became a nurse. And so I worked for 29 years as a nurse, 12 of those at UC Davis Medical Center, which is a level 1 trauma center, taking care of people shot, stabbed, really bad car accident. And so I've been surrounded by death during my time there. And when you're surrounded by death, after you understand kind of what's going on, you realize I better get busy to living, because when you see so many bad accidents and traumatic events, you kind of realize that your time is coming. And so fast forward to where we are now, that's why I just have a sense of urgency to doing this work, to getting out to people, learning from them, sharing with them, and just building community, one slice a pizza at a time. So yeah, I'm fired up.
I love that. One slice of pizza at a time.
Yeah.
So you mentioned one of the C4 values is consistency, which has obviously not been what the last year and a half or so has been. So how do leaders, community leaders, business leaders, managers who are leaders, how does that value play right now? Or what are some thoughts on consistency in such a crazy world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I tell myself and a lot of people this: we got to get out of our own way. And so many times our ego gets in the way with us being able to achieve consistency. And I mean two things by consistency. One from my dad, and I don't swear, but BTA, which is bust out ass. You got to work hard. If you want to be good at something, you got to be willing to pay the price. But that's kind of like a bygone. And more so consistency. And back to your question, Catherine, I define it to consistently challenge your thoughts and perspectives to the point of vulnerability. And when we can do that, then you realize, hey, I can just be who I am with all my flaws and all my weaknesses, and put those out there. And then realize when you do that, there's no reason to hide. And it's okay to ask for help. And when you do that, then you feel empowered. And when you feel empowered, then that leads you to my definition of creativity, overcoming fear to be willing to share your God-given gift. And each of us has that gift. But it's on you, it's on me, and it's on everybody else in this beautiful world to bring that gift out of each other. And when we can do that, man, life is good. And some of these problems that get in the way will no longer be in the way. And then I think the serious problems, then we can take a step back, take a deep breath, realize, hey, there's so much value in diversity and perspective. Let's get the right people coming to the table to offer some insight, offer some perspective, allow us all to be vulnerable, and then realize when we do that, we just empower each and every person. And so, yeah, that's what I mean by consistency. And I think if leaders can do that and have a little bit more of a shared governance approach, good things will happen.
I love that. Amen. That was a great speech. Hopefully we're recording this. Oh, wait, we are. That was awesome. That was awesome. I love that. I do definitely think that COVID and all of this hopefully has brought out vulnerability, and that people have gotten more comfortable to be vulnerable in front of each other. I don't know how much, but that's one of my hopes in terms of a silver lining, is that, if people are comfortable to be themselves, then they are going to be more creative. They're going to learn from each other. They're going to help each other. And one of my dear friends, Michelle, says vulnerability equals empowerment. Nice. Hi, Michelle. I love that. So, I know part of what you like to talk about in your work is leaving a legacy. And I'm curious, where's a good place to start there? There's so much around legacy. How do you help people figure out what they want their legacy to be? Or maybe you don't, maybe that's not part of your work. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question / comment. And John Austin has an amazing quote that I love. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. And I think, that's where I've been blessed to be surrounded by death. I was telling you, off air, that I have a big aneurysm right on my aortic root. And so every year I have to get an MRI with some contrast, and we measure it. And I have a lot of restrictions of what I can do. But that's been a blessing to me, because it really keeps me in that space of knowing that aneurysm could kind of pop at any time. And where it is, it's over. I'm not going to get rushed to the hospital and be saved. That's it. And so when you live in that space and you start thinking about legacy and what is it that you want to leave behind, it's all these emotions that so many times we run from instead of running to. And so I think you got to figure out, what are some things that you've been running from, and how can I change that and run to those and embrace those, and then figure out what your values are. And then that's your legacy. And for me, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm pretty good at a couple things, but I put my energy into those 4 C's. And so that's going to be my legacy. I want people to know and feel that I serve them. I want people to know and feel that I worked on developing trust to create these powerful connections. I want people to know and to feel that I busted my ass and worked hard towards bringing people together, and worked hard at trying to learn and grow and challenge myself to realize that I'm still just barely on the tip of learning and seeing things from different perspectives. And then I want people to know and feel that I overcame my fear and was willing to put these ideas and thoughts out to the world, and to share my gift. And if I can do that, man, when my time comes, I'm good. I'm ready to run and to see, what is next after this short time that we have on this earth.
Awesome. And you've got a comment here. May you live long, Jeff. Loving everything you're saying.
Oh, thank you.
So that one thing we have in common, sort of, is that, as you know, I was in a pretty traumatic accident and should have died, quite frankly. And somehow I managed to come out pretty unscathed, and broke my whole face, basically, and was in the hospital for 9 days. And that was a pretty traumatic experience. And I haven't maybe shared this publicly, but I'll share it now. I even, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. I have a memory of looking at myself, like I could see myself sitting on the where this accident happened, and almost like I got my soul knocked out of me a little bit. And so that really sticks with me. And I wonder, those people who haven't had the opportunity, shall we say, to kind of be at death's door, how do they find a legacy? Because I'm with you. It sounds like your aneurysm really drives you to do great things. And same for me, that I live life very differently. I feel life more. I'm more emotional. I'm more passionate about the things that I'm doing at Civility Partners. So where those people out there who maybe haven't had that type of a big event that maybe really drives them, where do they go to find inspiration for a legacy, or to think about their life and what changes or things they want to leave behind?
Yeah, I think I'm going to come around to that part. I worked for an incredible company called Odyssey Teams out of Chico, and they do leadership development all over the world. And one of the amazing things they do is this Camp Royal, District 5160. Rotarians are amazing. If there's any Rotarians out there, I love you and thank you for all the work that you do. But part of this is they have this challenge wall. It's a 16-foot wall, and you have to help each other get up and over that wall. And it's kind of crazy. People falling on each other. I mean, a little bit dangerous, but you start out by getting up, putting your hand on the wall and discussing, what challenges have you had? Depression, anxiety, suicide, death of a loved one. And I'll never forget, I forget the student's name, but this beautiful young man got up there and put his hand up on the wall and he said, "Hey, my life has been a blessing and I haven't had to deal with any of these challenges. but I take the challenges that you've had, and I take those into my heart, and I put my energy and my love and my joy and my happiness into you, helping you deal with what's going on. And then we just threw that kid up over the wall and just kind of flew up like a feather. And I think, we need to bathe in darkness, and we need to bathe in sunshine. And there's that ebb and flow of having both of those. And so you don't have to go through, a challenging time. We need people that have lived a blessed life, because they're going to be able to bring some sunshine when sometimes there's darkness, and then vice versa, and everybody, and all the work that I've done with my C4 stuff, part of what I do is help people learn how to tell their story. And every last person has a story. If you've been living, life is not easy. And so many times we don't realize, because we think we need to get hit by a trolley car, or we think that we need to have a big aneurysm, or we think we need to work in a level 1 trauma center and see people with their arms and legs and bellies open and all these crazy things. No, I mean, just get on your phone, get on the internet, and we have access to so many difficult things to see, and people carry that, and then they don't even realize that they're carrying it. Mm-hmm. And so everybody is in that space. But I think what we need to do is to talk about it. We need to come to the table. We need to have these discussions. We need to get people to be in that space and be vulnerable and share the things that are going on upstairs, and then realize that, okay, kind of everybody has something. And then there's nothing to fear, nothing to hide from. And then we can celebrate. But it's really just about getting into that space, which like you, I definitely believe that once the pandemic runs its course, so to say, and we are able to digest whatever this normal is going to be, I think there's going to be some struggle for sure. But then I do think we're going to come together way stronger. And I'm sure you're familiar with this term kintsugi. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
And it's amazing. It's an ancient Japanese art form where they take a beautiful artifact like a vase, and they intentionally break it. Then they clean it up. They put some lacquer and some 24 karat gold to it. And it's more beautiful than it was in its original form. And I think that's who we're going to become after this pandemic. We're going to have to clean ourselves up a little bit. We're going to have to add something to bring us together. And then we're going to be stronger for it. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but that was a little bit of a long answer.
No, I like that metaphor. So feel free to send me some gold, Jeff, so that my team and I can rebuild. I was thinking as you were talking about the fact that even if you haven't had your own, well, everyone's had their own personal trauma, that's for sure. Because life is hard, but then you're saying going on the internet and you can find all sorts of other things to care about. I think that's where millennials, they say, whoever they is, that millennials really care very much they want to work for organizations that have a purpose and where they really get to make an impact. And that some of that really came from the fact that they did grow up with the internet. And so hopefully as more and more generations grow up with the internet as part of their life, starting at 2, that unlike you and I, that just making an impact will continue, and recognizing the impact that you can have, whether with your words and being negative or doing something really great. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm excited with all generations, but the younger generation, yeah, they're going to do incredible things. And it's upon us to help guide, mentor, shape, and encourage them again to share their gift, and I really hope I've been in education. I've been until my recent health challenges. I've been the last 4 semesters teaching nursing at Sacramento City College, which oh man, I just loved it, and I get so much energy from my students But I really think that this pandemic is going to cause education to realize that we got to do things a little different. And I don't know what that is yet. And this is where I think there's going to be some challenges in the next few years of figuring out, all right, how do we navigate this? But I do think we're going to come out better in so many different parts of our country and our world that are going to be better for so many people. And education is one of those things that's been broken for a long time. And I do think this pandemic is going to allow us to just apply that kintsugi again and allow us to be stronger in the places where we were broken.
Yeah. So as we're rebuilding, we've been torn down. Now companies have the opportunity, all of us, but I'm a consultant for companies, so I want to go there. So companies have the ability to rebuild in a new way. They can add some gold, they can change culture. It's like we've been broken down and we have an opportunity to start fresh. So what are some of the steps that leaders need to take? I love what you're saying. Let's get everyone together, be vulnerable, talk to each other, get to know each other, break bread together. But then what? How do leaders carry that forward? I know lots of times people go to an event and like, oh, that was great. And then it just kind of goes back to what it was. So what are the next steps?
Yeah, no, it's such a great question, and I forget the guest that told me this on my podcast, but the gist of it was do less better. And man, did that speak to me, and I'll say, nursing right now, my wife is a nurse at UC Davis Medical Center in the neurosurgical ICU. My oldest daughter is a nurse at Baca Valley in the emergency room, and their jobs are so difficult. Because they just have more and more and more that's added to their plate. And so it becomes really difficult to find out, hey, what's truly essential that we have to focus our energy on in order to do things better. In nursing, one of those professions where, high level of burnout, especially now with the pandemic and things. But so somehow you have to take a step back and say, are there things that we can do more efficiently? First of all, and then I think you got to take some way steps back, and you got to figure out, well, and this is your expertise, we're talking about culture. Well, what does that mean? Because I think if we were to line 100 people up, we probably have 100 different definitions. And so if you want business, a team, a family, a school to be on the same page, then you have to have a shared governance approach of, all right, well, let's define what culture is. And I think you can define what that is. Okay, here's what it is. And here's the values that are going to make this culture. Then you have to find a way to measure those values. And there has to be, in a good way, accountability, and then a great way, celebration of when you're sticking to those values. And so for some sports teams that I work with, and I don't know if this would be the best for business, but I was like, how do you measure that? Because in all my years, and I think, I've been a high school, college, and professional basketball coach. And it always bugged me until I came up with this system of, man, there's just something wrong with the culture, but you can't put your finger on it. And so I started thinking about, after all these years, thinking about what kind of categories are my players falling in. And when we're in this space, it's not really leading us to be successful. And so I came up with these C0, C1, C2, C3, C4 kind of categories that we would, and including myself, would go through. And so C0 was the category where it's just all about me. I'm just, hey, forget what else everybody else is doing. I'm just going to focus on me. C1 was I'm going to smile to your face and talk behind your back. C2 was a country clubber. Hey, things are all good, but I'm just kind of out at the country club. And so I'm not really present with what I'm doing, never really going to contribute and share my gift because I'm just at the country club and kind of life is kind of chill that way. C3 was like an 8 to 5er. Hey, they're going to come in, they're going to put in a good day's work. But as soon as they're done, that's a wrap. They're not going to go at 5:01. They're out and they're not thinking about work, which isn't a bad thing. And then C4 was all in. And so with certain teams, I would have them measure this every week, and you'd come up with a numeric. And it was so cool. And so you would do a self-evaluation, you would do a team, and they're anonymous, a team evaluation, and then a coach. Anybody that's associated with the team would get evaluated. And then you would get a numeric for that. And then the teams that were in the twos were struggling. And when times of adversity came, when they would lose, they would start to, in that category, smile to your face, talk behind your back, or at the country club where, just not do anything about it. And so the numbers would reflect their actions. The teams that were in the 3s and 4s, even if they would lose, they would bounce right back and, all right, hey, what do we need to do to fix it? And that practice the next day would just be crisp, and they're just getting after it, and they would use those opportunities to learn and to get better. And so somehow, to answer your question, if we want to be able to create this culture, you have to have some sort of numeric, something that you're using as a tool. And then with those teams, again, obviously we wanted them to be in this C3, C4 space. And so, okay, what are actions that those players, those individuals, those brothers, sisters, teammates can take that are reflective of C3? What are those same actions someone in the C4 space would take? And then you have those all around your business or your locker room or your house. And then pretty soon those are the actions that you're taking. And those are the teams that are going to beat teams that they got no business beating, because they together and they serve each other. They're deeply connected. They're always learning and growing, and then they share their gift. And then I would just say with that, boom, baby, right there. That's good stuff that happens for teams when you can get into that space.
Yes, I love that. And you just described a whole process, around figuring out who your high performers are, high pose, as they call them in the HR world. And then how do you lean on them, and how do you get them to help other people come along with them? So there you go. There was a $10,000 consulting conversation right there. Anybody's focused on developing high performers and identifying high performers, that's great to decide what a high performer is. And in your scenario, it was the people who were all in all the time. For another organization, it might be something different, but figure out what that is. And then so define what a high performer looks like and does and how they behave. And then figure out who in the team is at these different levels. And can you bring some people up a couple levels or not? And if not, then figure out what your next step is. So that was great advice. Thank you for that.
And I want to say one last thing, because you're leading me something really cool that I created with my teams and then with my nursing students, and it was called a teach back. When you talk about these high performers bringing other people along, I think one of the best things we could do is you learn so much when you teach. And so in nursing there's a lot of difficult concepts, and so when I was teaching, I would teach the concept, and then I would have the students do a teach back, which was 30-second or a minute teach, and they would just go over, hey, here's the concept that we just learned, and then now they're the teacher to their classmate. Their classmate would sit and listen, and then after their 30 seconds or a minute, the classmate would have 10 seconds to help them fill in the gaps of the teach back, and then they'd switch roles. And then they'd high five and, hey, thanks for making me better. And there's just so many simple things that we could do that build this culture that we're trying to create to empower all people, and then make learning fun. And when you have those teach backs, you kind of have to listen a little bit differently because that they're coming. So I would, depending on what I was teaching, and our lectures were long, unfortunately, I don't know how my students got through my stuff, but there would be, in an hour, there could be 7-8 teach backs, where you're just getting after it the whole time. And so, one of the highlights of my career, and then you're not even doing anything. You're just sitting back watching.
You don't even have to teach. They're teaching each other.
That's how learning happens. And that's one thing we don't understand. because then they have an invested interest in what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jeff, thanks so much for joining me today. Let the audience know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I'm terrible with social media stuff, so you can't really find me anywhere. But you could just go Jeff at C and then the number 4 leaders, LEADERS.org. And I would love to hear from you. Catherine, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do, all the positive influence that you're doing on building amazing cultures in San Diego and all over the world, all your writing that you're doing. It was great seeing you. I know you're going to do amazing on your LinkedIn class that you're doing. You look ready.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and looking forward to all the big things that you're doing and accomplishing as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.